Present, sir.
Good morning. Day number 23. The defense's case, you may call.
Good morning. Watch your step, there. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You'll come to the witness stand and have a seat, please. The microphone is very sensitive, and you have to get quite right up on it. But if you would state your full name again, and please spell your last name.
Nolan Tuten, T-U-T-E-N.
Good morning.
Morning.
Would you please tell
Growing up, and just we're lifelong friends.
what do you do?
I work in the timber business.
Okay. And
Pretty much my whole life.
did you spend a lot of time with Alex and his family?
I did.
Okay. And how would you describe your relationship with Paul?
He was one of my best friends. Considered him like a little brother to me. We were really close.
How about tell the jury a little bit?
Paul's one of those guys that would, you could call him at the drop of the hat, and he would come. He was, there for
How often did you talk to Paul?
every day.
Every day. How often did you?
A couple times a week, most weeks.
And when you saw him, where would y'all be?
It depended. He would come to my house. I would see him on the boat. We would just go hunt together, fish together, just do whatever we really felt like doing. We hung around Moselle. We farmed at Moselle. Whatever we felt like doing, really.
And when you were with Paul outside doing these activities, did he have his phone with him normally?
Most.
Okay. And did he ever put it down?
He did sometimes, not a whole lot. It was either in his hand or in his pocket, but if he had something in his hand, he would, set it down the truck or somewhere close to him. It would be within reaching distance.
Okay. What was your impression from the time you spent with the family as to how they got along?
They all had a really good relationship, I felt like. When I was around, there was always kind of like a good relationship, good family relationship.
Did you have a nickname for Alex?
Big Red.
Okay. And how would you describe the relationship between Paul and Alex?
Had a really good relationship.
Would you say that Alex was patient with Paul?
He was.
How about that?
Buster and Paul got two for Christmas one year. Buster had a black one, Paul had a tan one, and they were at Moselle, and then Paul's, got stolen, whatever happened to it, and then there was just the black Moselle that we used more or less. Rode around, played around at the house, messed around at the sheds. We would go ride the buggies, ride in the truck, go fish, go hunt, go farm.
When you rode around at Moselle, what vehicles would you ride in?
It really depended, honestly, what was.
Did you ever ride in the black Ford F-150?
I did.
Okay. Familiar with where the kennels are located?
Yes.
At Moselle? Okay. And if you and Paul were at the house, would you guys typically walk to the kennels, or would you drive down there?
We would never walk. We would drive or ride something.
Okay. And were there ever times where you noticed Paul with guns in his trucks on Moselle?
All the time.
Did he shed by the dog kennels?
They were sometimes, not a whole lot, but there were, sometimes left there and then picked up later.
Okay. What about the hangar?
Same.
Maggie. Tell me about Maggie.
She was she was a very sweet woman. She would, do whatever. She treated me like I was one of her own. She was just really, really sweet woman.
And would she go down to the...
She would ride a Ranger, a golf cart, however she felt like getting down there.
Okay. Let's go to the day of June 7th.
Okay.
Walk me through that day.
That morning I got up and I talked to Paul either over the weekend or one of those days when we had talked. CB had sprayed the sunflowers, and so I'd gone out to Moselle that morning and rode by the sunflowers to see if they were actually dead yet, or not. Noticed that they were dead. So then, Paul and I talked, I don't know, around 10 or 11. I stayed at work all day pretty much. We were supposed to go out that afternoon and start plowing the sunflowers under. And I got stuck at work late and talked to Paul throughout the day, and I wasn't going to make it that night. And then, so I went home after work, and then everything had happened.
When you talked to Paul that morning, what, if any, understanding did you have as to where he was?
He was in Okatee. He was working for John Marvin at the time.
Okay, and then you guys made plans to meet at Moselle that afternoon?
That's right, yes.
Okay. When you called him on the way home, what, if any, understanding did you have as to where he was?
When I talked to him on the way home, he was driving from Okatee to Moselle when I spoke to him. I did.
Okay. Did you see Alex?
I did.
How would you describe him?
He was pretty distraught. He was, when I got there, he and I saw each other, and we both kind of walked towards each other, and he gave me a hug and just started crying, and told me they were gone.
Clarification. Your plans to meet up with Paul on June 7th,
Right.
was that plan to address the issue you had seen in the with sunflowers?
That's right.
Okay. No further questions.
Fire State.
Doing well. Nolan, we've met a bunch of times, right?
Yes.
Prior to trial, we've met in Colleton, we've met elsewhere. We've had, and you've had a lot of conversations with law enforcement also. They were sometimes there at the meetings.
Yes.
You were as close a friend as Paul, and I just want you to say again, he was the kind of guy that if you needed something in the middle of the night, you could call him.
Yes.
Was he going to be there for you?
He was going to come.
Flat tire side of the road, Paul's there for you.
He was there.
Okay. You also, I think, and Maggie, I think you referred to her as a second mom to you.
did.
Kind of, they adopted you into the family. You were treated like one of the group. Is that fair to say?
That's right.
And what year did you graduate high school?
2014.
What year was Paul at Wade Hampton?
He didn't go to Wade Hampton.
Oh, what year was he graduating high school? Sorry.
I want to say 17, maybe 17 or 18.
So you were a little older than Paul.
That's right. He was the same age as my younger brother, Nate.
And your younger brother, I know we already heard we previously in this trial.
That's right.
So your years in high school would actually align with
Buster's.
More Buster's and Paul.
That's right.
I think you mentioned that Paul was an avid cell phone user. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
He used it all the time, responsive when you needed something because he always was there to answer the call or respond to a text. Is that
That's
fair
right.
to say?
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself someone that has a fair amount of knowledge about firearms?
I feel like it, yes.
Are you an avid hunter?
I am.
And you've had a lot of experience with firearms yourself?
I have.
And a lot of experience with the family's firearms?
Yes, sir.
Gain kind of a knowledge of what people tend to use or favor?
Yes, sir.
And is it fair to say that, well, first, before we go there, let's talk about the 300 blackout. Paul's 300 blackout, I think you just testified.
Right.
Now, Buster's, when they received it, Buster's 300 blackout was what color?
It was black.
And Paul's 300 blackout was what color?
It was like a sand color.
And you, hanging out with Paul, and I'm going to talk about somewhere in like 2017, 2018, did you go to a Halloween party with Paul?
We did.
Did you actually ride with him?
From my recollection, yes.
And it wasn't uncommon for Paul to have his kind of favorite guns in the car with him. Is that fair to say?
That's fair.
And on this occasion, when you went to this party, did Paul have that 300, his tan 300 blackout with him.
He did.
But this is back in like 2017, 2018,
It was a while ago, yes, sir.
before COVID.
That's right.
The new before
That's right.
COVID, after COVID. And tell us what happened. What happened that night?
I mean, we were at a Halloween party, and we had been around Mosaic, and we left, and then later on, the gun was gone. The gun was missing. Whether whatever happened to it, it was, we no longer had it.
So, nice rifle, right?
It was.
It was a fairly expensive rifle, and the scope on it is a very expensive scope.
That's right.
So it wasn't like it was misplaced. It was. Do you believe it was stolen?
I believe so. Yes.
And then going to guns, did Paul do any of the trial?
I've watched some. Yes.
And is it without going ahead and rooting through the guns? Is it that camo in color Benelli Super Flag Eagle 3 that the state has in evidence?
That's right.
That's Paul's shotgun.
That was the one he favored the most. Yes.
And then did Paul also have a 300 blackout on him at all times?
He did. Most
So
times.
what did Paul do after his rifle was stolen? What did he use then?
When his rifle was stolen, he more or less took Buster's as his own. So
He started using Buster's. Is that because Buster really didn't use that very much?
Buster was in school, either in Wofford or in Columbia. So Buster came to Moselle a fair amount, but Paul was there more, and so just used it as his own.
And then Buster had a shotgun he'd favor. I think we'd already heard about it, but is it a Benelli Super Black Eagle Model 2?
That's right.
And then I believe Alex favored a Super Black Eagle Model 1.
That's right. He
So-
either shot the 1 or the 2.
So we have 1, 2, and 3 models.
Right.
For the same Benelli Super Black Eagle, but models 1, 2, and 3.
That's right.
And those are all 12 was used
That's
as
right.
a kind of general use. I think you also mentioned that about guns being left down at the kennel area. Occasional. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
They weren't stored down there, right? Usually, if guns were left, would it be mostly in just the hunting seasons?
That's right.
Okay.
It would either be during the hunting seasons, or if Paul was cleaning out his truck, he would.
Hunting season.
Deer season is typically in the fall, sometime August to January. Duck season is around Thanksgiving to the end of January, and turkey season somewhere around there.
Were you, and you've spent a lot of time at Moselle, I think you already
have.
talked about. Were you around before when there was only one entrance and
was.
exit? So when there was only one entrance and exit, the main entrance and exit, where was that one? Okay. And is that actually where the mailbox is?
That's right.
And I think packages are sent that way,
They would.
sort of leading from the house.
That's right.
Is that accurate as well?
That is.
You all spent a lot of time at the kennel area, kind of the hangar kennel area.
We did.
It's kind of a good collection point for whatever y'all were doing, whether it was working on the tour or hunting and getting ready for things. Is that
That's correct.
a fair thing to say? It's a good collection point
Yes,
for
sir.
y'all. And I think out there's also a processing shed for if
There
you
is.
killed anything.
Yes, sir.
And if you all are down there and just to see if y'all needed anything.
More often than not, yeah.
All right. Is it, and we've heard a lot about him, is it fair to say that he had a lifestyle that was just fairly unpredictable?
Absolutely.
I mean, he was traveler.
He did.
So you talk to him almost every day, right?
That's right.
But for those so close to him, it would be fairly hard to even know where he was going to be on any given day,
That's right.
unless you kept in frequent contact with him, right?
That's fair to say.
He was everywhere. Any given day during the week, who knows where he could be. Fair
Yes,
to
sir.
say? All right, so I'm going to talk to you about your best friend.
That's right.
And that's a tough day for you, is that right?
It is.
You talked to Paul that day on the phone
I did.
in the morning and afternoon times. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And I know you just testified to it, but walk me through again, if you wouldn't mind. I believe y'all were talking about the sunflowers. They died.
We were.
And you often helped out on the farm. Is that also fair to say?
I did, yes.
Meaning related stuff, tilling the ground and planting seeds and all that stuff.
That's right.
You were pretty active in the maintaining of the duck ponds and the corn.
That's right.
He'd call on you to help out.
Yes.
And is that what happened on leading up to and on June 7th?
Yes, it was. I was riding by because typically when you spray something, it takes a couple days before it actually takes effect. So it happened. CB sprayed them, I want to say Thursday or Friday. So we really couldn't get a good idea of what was actually done, the harm that was actually done, until a few days later. And I was going to be riding by Moselle that morning to go to work. So I just swung in there to check on them and see what it was, where we could come up with a game plan on what to do.
And you had pretty free use of the property, meaning you could show up and come and go as you please. That wasn't weird, right?
That's right.
So the fact that you did that morning to check on stuff, that's actually pretty normal
That's right.
for you? Okay. And so you show up on that morning and check the sunflowers, and they're dying. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So the decision was made that y'all would have to, and why do you need sunflowers? What's the purpose of those?
They attract doves. We plant them, kind of corn, sunflowers in the dove field, to have dove hunts.
So it's important for hunting
That's
for
right.
the sunflower field.
Yeah, it's a good attractant.
So the decision made then to till the field and replant the sunflowers.
That's correct.
It wasn't too late. All right. So what do you relay to Paul then?
I talked to Paul, told him that they were in fact dying and we had to restart. So meeting up that afternoon at Moselle to go ahead and get the tractor hooked up and begin plowing them under.
And is that
That's
true?
correct.
Okay. What did you have going on?
I got hung up at work around the Columbia area.
So the plan then became we're just gonna do it later,
That's
right?
right.
We'll do it sometime later in the week.
Yes.
Now, leading up to, tell us what that Snapchat's like a video image that someone can send you,
That's correct. Yes.
and tell us about what that Snapchat was.
It was a video of the John Deere Highboy. One of the cylinders on the back to spread the boom to spray was leaking pretty bad, so he was sending me a video to show me how bad it was leaking.
Okay. And a tiller is a piece of farm equipment. Is that correct?
What is it?
Sorry.
Repeat your question.
You said a tiller? Is that
The Highboy.
Highboy. Is that a piece of farm equipment?
It is.
And is that the thing you would use then to plow the fields?
That's what we would use to spray.
Spray. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. And it was leaking some sort of fluid, meaning it was maybe broken.
That's right.
All right. Now you've in all the times we've met, the number of times, did you have a chance to listen to what we call it, kind of the kennel video?
I did.
And did you when listening to it, did you identify the voices on that video?
I did.
Having known the family, what voices did you hear on that video when you
Paul,
heard it?
Miss Maggie in it, Mr. Elliott.
Nighttime, the hangar kennel area. It's actually a hangar as well.
That's right.
Is that true?
Yes,
And is it true then also that the fan lights and overhead lights?
that's correct.
So if you're down there in the middle of the night, even though there may not be any, street lighting or anything like that, the kennel area and the hangar are all brightly lit with like fluorescent lighting.
Yes, sir.
Would you be able to see the lighting if you were at the Moselle house? Would you be able to look down if it's nighttime? Would you be able to look down and see the well-lit area? What's the last communication you have with Paul?
That phone call.
And
Phone
you
call
go to
and
bed.
Snapchat.
Sorry, go ahead.
The phone call and the Snapchat.
And you then go, and it's just any other night. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think you testified to it, but you were woken up at what time?
It was around 10:30, between 10:30 and 11. my mom had called me, and she had heard something had happened at Moselle, so I tried to call Paul.
And at the time, were you living fairly close by?
I was living closer to Alameda. It was probably a 20 to 25 minute drive to Moselle.
When you arrived at the scene, what entrance did you go to initially?
Initially, I was coming down Moselle Road, and I noticed all the first response. And
When you arrived, what did you observe?
when I got there, there were a lot of first responders out, and I could see 2 bodies laying, one by the.
And by the time you arrived, law enforcement had already cordoned off the area.
They had.
But you could, where the tractor housed, you could kind of stand around back there.
That's correct.
And even though it's set further back, you could still see sort of the scene.
Yes.
Who was there with you when you arrived?
When I arrived, it was myself, Alec, Randy, Ronnie Crosby, Mark Ball. I think that's it at the time. People started coming when I got there. A lot of people started coming, showing up.
And I know you tested. And when you did you have a chance then to interact with Alex?
I did.
And is he here today?
He is.
Is he sitting at the council table right there in between his lawyers?
He is.
And I think you said you hugged. Is that right?
We did.
And what thing did he repeat to you twice? That's the thing he said to you.
That's right.
And did he also ask you to get in touch with Rogan?
He did.
And you know Rogan Gibson?
I do.
Friends with him as well?
Yes, sir.
So the 2 things he says to you there is, 2 of the things he says is the boat wreck. I think he said the effing boat wreck. Is that right?
He did.
Back to the court.
Thank you.
Redirect.
You mentioned that Paul would clean his cars out down by the kennel area,
Right.
his trucks. Are you aware that he took his truck in to be serviced
I
that
was.
Friday?
Yes.
Okay. And he cleaned that out before he went?
Yes.
And if you're at the house in Moselle, can you see in detail at night what's happening at the kennels?
You could just see. You noticed something was down there, but you weren't really able to tell exactly what it was.
Okay, and going back to June 7th, you went out there in the morning for the dove field.
That's right.
Okay, and did you see the black?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Ladies and gentlemen, we have you go to the jury room for a short break. Please announce. Everyone, be seated. Mr. Harpoolian, do you need any additional time to confer with Mr. Murdaugh?
He indicates he doesn't need to talk to me. It hurts my feelings, but we don't need any break. However, Your Honor, he does need to visit the restroom before we start this process.
All right, we'll take it. Oh, you do, absolutely. You may bring the jury. Thank you. Ma'am, you will not be able to sit. You cannot sit there. You cannot sit in the jury box. You may call.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh, wishes to take the stand.
Watch your step. Yes, ma'am. You'll place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Go ahead and stand. Adjust that microphone. And if you don't mind stating your full name again and spelling your last name.
I'm Alec Murdaugh, M-U-R-D-A-U-G-H. Good morning.
Mr. Murdaugh, on June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take a .300 blackout, such as this, and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a .300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife, son, anytime. Ever.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you on the kennel video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th, the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
It is.
Were you in fact at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to Sled Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Did you lie to Agent Owen and Agent Croft on the follow-up interview on June 10th that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul was at dinner?
I did lie to them.
And in the interview of August 11th, did you tell Agent and Agent Croft, did you lie to them by telling them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
Alec, why did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
As my addiction evolved over time, I would get in these situations or circumstances where I would get paranoid thinking. It could be anything that triggered it. It might be a look somebody gave me. It might be a reaction somebody had to something I did. It might be someone following me in a car. That night, June 7th, after finding Mags and Paul, don't talk to any without Danny with you. All my partners were just repeatedly telling me. I had a deputy sheriff taking gunshot in my hands. I'm sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED, caused me to have paranoid thoughts. Normally, when these paranoid thoughts would hit me, I could take a deep breath real quick and just think about it, reason my way through it, and just get past it really quickly. On June the 7th, I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't think I was capable of reason. And I lied about being down there. And I'm so sorry that I did. I'm sorry to my son Buster. I'm sorry to Grandma and Papa T. I'm sorry to both of our families. Most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Pawpaw. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them. Ever. Ever.
Did you continue lying after that night? Did you not?
But once I lied, I continued to lie. Yes, sir.
Why?
You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave. But once I told the lie, I told my family, I had to keep lying.
Alex, tell the jury what happened on the evening of June, starting when you met with Paul.
I'd been at work that day, a fairly normal day. You mean start in the morning? Or,
Sure, start in the morning.
it was just a regular morning. He was leaving to go out of town. She was going to a doctor's appointment, and she had some stuff to do at Edison, where she was having some work done on our house at Edison. But Maggie was there that morning. She went to leave, and she told me she was doing these things. I always asked Maggie to come back home and stay with me. But anyway, Maggie had left. She did her thing. I went to work, did work. I learned from Paul that that's Paul, my son Paul Murdaugh.
And your name for him was Paul.
Yeah, we called him Paul.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Buster, Maggie, I called him Paul or Paul Terry, but Mags called him Paul. Buster called him Paul. A lot of people called him Paul. But anyway, I learned about I'd known that CB, the guy that worked for us, had sprayed the sunflowers. I knew about that, but I'd been out of town. I didn't know they were dead. Paul let me know they had died. So we had to replant the dove field. That's our dove field, which the dove field is just a big social part of people come, and it's just a social big part of it. So the dove field was a big deal. So when the sunflowers got killed, we knew they were dead. Paul was coming home, and I learned that early Monday morning.
And did and we'll catch back up, but at some point in time, did you meet up with Paul?
Yeah, after work, I met Paul at the property.
And we're going to backfill and talk about more of the day, but I just want to focus in on that evening right now. When Paul gets to the property, what do y'all do?
First thing we do is we go to the Dove field, and we look at the Dove field. And
How did you get to the Dove field?
he had come my brother's truck. We got in my son Buster's black pickup truck. We called it Buster's truck, or the black pickup truck. You've heard it called too, but I call it Buster's truck.
Okay, so you're in Buster, and you go to the Dove field. Tell the jury what else.
Well, that's the first thing we do. We go to the Dove field and we look, and it was clearly it didn't. You could tell they were. I mean, you could tell they'd been sprayed, and you could tell they were dead. I mean, they might have still had a tiny bit of life, but they were dead. So we knew that. So we knew we had to replant the whole field. So that didn't take but a second. But after that, Paul. We just rode the property. We spent time together. We rode around and we spent time together on the property.
Did you go to the duck pond?
Oh yeah. We went to several food plots. We went to Single Oak Stand, we called it, which is across the road. I know we went to the Bridge Stand. We went to the duck pond where we stayed for a minute, and
Did you?
I can remember the duck pond specifically because I had helped Paul plant the Dove field and the corn in the Dove field. So sunflowers, corn, and I had helped him plant in the Dove field. Paul had planted the duck pond by himself, and he's making a really big deal to me about how much better the corn was doing in the Dove field. We stayed there for a little while. We rode. We were at the cabin for a little while. We rode around the cabin looking at it.
No, cabin is what?
That's it's a little small. It's truly a cabin. It's a 4-room structure. It's got a little living area, a little kitchen, and it's got 2 little bedrooms and 1 little bathroom. And that's what you've heard talk about, where the kids stayed. Is
that what the jury's seen? Some overhead pictures. It's right there on Moselle Road.
Yeah, it's right up on Moselle Road, and it's very close to the driveway that goes to the shop and the kennels.
Did you spend any time at the shop, you think?
Oh yes. I mean, the shop was. I mean, that was sort of the hub. That was the main place. If you weren't at the house, you might be out going to this field or this food plot or this duck pond or this part of the river. But the shop is where the kennels were located. You know, that was. You were always there. Something was always going on there. You're always doing something there. That's where all the tools were. That's where all the equipment was kept. That was the main hub.
Right.
And so we were there. I mean, there was a point in time where we unloaded a bulldozer that had been on a different part of the property. It was on a trailer. We unloaded it and sprayed it down real quick. That was just one of the many things we did that day.
One of the things the jury's seen, Alec, is a Snapchat video of you and doing something with a tree. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
And so what was happening there?
That's just part of when we were riding. That particular location where that was is at a food plot we called Sawtooth Oaks, and it was named that because there were some sawtooth oaks that were planted there that you can't see in the picture. But what that is, at all these food plots, there's an area where it's not as big as a field, but it's like a field where you plant vegetation for wildlife. Like it might be cowpeas or soybeans, but you plant, and then there's a feeder to attract deer. Then we planted these little fruit trees on these stands, and what you see me doing is fooling with a fruit tree that I'd been tending to. It had fallen over. I had straps on it. I had strings on it that were holding it up. One of the strings popped. I undid the other string, and it was falling over, and Pawpaw was laughing at me trying to get it back upright. It was just a fruit tree that I'd been dealing with for years, and it wouldn't stand up straight.
And were you and Paul having a good time at that point?
You could not be around Pawpaw You could not be around him and not have a good time.
Were you close?
You couldn't be any closer than Pawpaw and I and Buster and I were and are. He's just wonderful. Wonderful.
And it's one of the things you enjoyed doing together was just riding the property?
I love doing anything with Pawpaw. It was a delight. But yeah, one of the things, Paul's passion. Paul was passionate about a lot of things, but that property was really a passion of his. He loved to he loved to work with fields, he loved to work with food plots, he loved to hunt. He'd work on the roads. He would work on all of it. He would work on the structure. He worked on the whole property. It was his passion.
So on the evening of the 7th, jury's been inundated with data from various different sources, but
sure,
just ballpark. Can you, knowing what we know now after reviewing everything, but roughly when do you remember Paul getting there and you getting there, starting to ride the property?
Now that I've had the benefit of seeing all of these records, Pawpaw got home, I believe, a little bit before 7 o'clock. And I got home a little bit before him. The details have been that I got home around 6:42 or 6:45 or something like that, and Paul got there very quickly there,
and then
by 7 o'clock.
So you rode the property for a while. Do you remember when Maggie arrived?
Yeah, it was later than that. It was 8 or after 8. After 8, and looking at the records, a little bit after 8.
And do you remember her arriving or where you were when she arrived?
I believe that I was at the shop when she came through, which would not be unusual for her, having been away. If Blanca had gotten the mail or somebody had gotten the mail, maybe not, but if somebody had not gotten the mail, it would be perfectly normal for her to pull through there. And I believe she did pull through there that day. And Paul and I were at the shop, I believe.
And then what did you do after Maggie arrived?
We went to the house, and I know that. But shortly after, however I learned that Maggie got home, I went to the house when home, and I left Paul at the shop.
So, and what did you do when you got to the house?
I saw Mags, talked to Mags, and I took a shower.
The clothes that we saw in that Snapchat video was that the clothes you had at work that day?
Yes, those are the clothes that worked that day.
And the jury's seen you in those clothes, and what's on June 7th. How tall were you, and how much did you weigh?
On June 7th, well, I'm a hair over 6'4", right at 6'4". On June the 7th, I was about 265 pounds, 264, 265.
And this was in June.
Sure.
When you were outside, riding around and doing. Did you get hot and sweaty?
Absolutely. Paul and I had done some things. We unloaded the bulldozer, cleaned the bulldozer. We moved around. Yeah, I sweated. I was heavy and taking prescription pills also makes you sweat worse, or at least taking oxycodone makes you sweat more than you normally do.
So was it unusual for you to take a shower when you got back to?
Not at all.
And that, after you took a shower, what did you change into?
I changed into the clothes that you've seen in this trial, shorts and a shirt.
Okay. When you got out of the shower and changed clothes, what did you do next?
I went back out where Mags and Paw Paw were and
What were
for
they
dinner.
doing? What was going on?
Mags had, as you've heard, Blanca had prepared dinner, but it had been cooked earlier. Mags had fixed. I know Mags had fixed mine and her plate because I didn't fix a plate. She may have fixed Paw Paw. Paw Paw was eating, and Paw Paw was done eating by the time I got back out, which also wasn't unusual. I mean, Paw Paw was always on the go. I mean, he never sat still. And, you know, he'd sit down to eat, but then he's his next item.
And
So then Maggie and I ate.
and you all eat at the table? Do you eat at the den? What's your normal habit?
We would do both, but, I mean, when we ate it was really sort of more formal or not formal, but just more of an organized thing. Our normal, what we would normally do on a regular evening is we would eat in the den in front of the TV. And that's where we ate that day. I ate on the couch, the table. Maggie had a little a TV tray that she kept over there, and Paw Paw would usually sit in a recliner and eat off of the ottoman.
And was the TV on?
Yes,
Was that normal for the TV to be on?
yes. TV, if we were in the house, the TV was on.
So what happened next, Alec?
Paw Paw moved on doing whatever he was doing. I don't know if he was in the gun room doing something, or he was in his room doing something, or he was outside doing something. I actually thought he'd gone to the shed, but in looking at to the shop, but in looking at the benefit of having these records that we have, I know he was still at the house or somewhere around the house doing something, but he wasn't in there with Maggie. But Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and I had eaten dinner. I laid back on the couch where I was sitting. Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and she asked me to go, and I didn't go at that time. I didn't want to go.
Why didn't you want to go?
It was hot. I just had a shower. I knew I'd end up doing more work, sweating more, and the dogs is always a chaotic scene, and I just didn't want to go right then.
Well, let me ask you, what had you done the previous days, like Friday and Saturday and Sunday?
Start with Friday, or
Yeah.
go backwards?
Yeah, start with Friday.
All right, on that.
Just briefly.
So 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th. So June the 4th, my dad was in the hospital in Savannah, Georgia, at Memorial Hospital. And I went down to visit him Friday afternoon, and I stayed with him in the hospital. I spent the night there. You know, he was real sick. I mean, he was having a hard time.
Did you get much sleep Friday night?
No, I mean, I had a real sweet nurse found me. At first, there was just a hard chair in there like this, but a nurse found me a soft chair, sort of like a recliner. So, I mean, I'm sure I slept, but I didn't sleep. You know, I didn't get a night's sleep. No, sir.
And then Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday, we had plans with Buster and Brooklyn. Y'all have heard about Brooklyn. It's Buster's wonderful little girlfriend. And Max and I had plans with them to meet them in Columbia, to go to the South Carolina. It was a regional baseball tournament. And South Carolina was playing Virginia, I believe. So when I got back from and met up with Mags. At some point, we headed to Columbia. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot going on in between there. We headed up to Columbia and met Bus in Brooklyn.
And then, did you stay in Columbia Saturday night?
Did. We went to the ball game, and I remember it was an evening game. We went pretty early and tailgated. Maggie had reconnected with a college friend who coincidentally had married a college friend of mine, and they had a son that played for Carolina. He was a first baseman, and a really good little player. And we met them and tailgated with them, and it was a lot of fun. They had a lot of the parents of the were playing for Carolina, and it was a fun time. We tailgated, and then we went to, and it was a night game, so we went to the game, and the game got over. It was fairly late into the evening, and after that, Bus, Brooklyn, and Mags and I believe we went to the restaurant in the hotel where we were staying, but we went, had dinner, and then Bus and Brooklyn went home, and of course Maggie and I went to our room.
And then get up the next day, and was there another game?
Another game the next day. That's right. And
then after that, you head back to Moselle with Maggie?
yeah, we went to the game. That's right. Mags and I go back to
Moselle.
Moselle.
And the jury's heard about, I think Ms. Rass talking about you bringing Krispy Kreme donuts to your dad.
Maggie loved to. She spoiled my dad, and always taking him something. My dad loved sweets, and she and I picked up donuts and took Krispy Kreme donuts to him.
And then y'all both spent the night together at Moselle on Sunday night. Did you both spend the night at Moselle on Sunday night?
Yes.
And then the 7th was a work day?
That's right. It was a Monday, June the 7th.
Hang on. I'll rephrase it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was Monday the 7th a work day for you? Okay. And I just wanted to do that back, moving forward to when you testified previously about Maggie asking you to go to the kennels. Were you tired?
Oh yes, I was tired.
And you had just had a shower.
Just had a shower.
And you said that, well, did you go with Maggie to the kennels immediately?
No, I did not.
What'd you do? What did she leave?
Yes, she did. She left and Paw was gone.
Do you know how she got to the kennels?
At the time I didn't, but now looking at these condition records and understanding the timeline, it's clear to me that she rode with Paw.
And did you stay in the house?
Yes.
For how long?
Not long. I laid back on the couch, put my feet up, and like many times when Maggie asked me to do something that I didn't want to do or didn't start out doing, changed my mind and decided I'm going to ride up there. And I did.
And how did you get to the kennels?
I went on a golf cart.
Was the golf cart at the house, the main house?
Yeah. It was. And it was there most of the time.
And when you got down to the kennels, what was happening?
It's just what I thought it was. A little bit of chaos. I mean, it was clear to me that Mags had just let the dogs out. The two dogs that were out were really her pet dogs. One is Grady. You've heard about a black lab. That's Grady. That's Buster's dog. And the other is the yellow lab that you've heard about. That's Bubba. Bubba was mine and Maggie's dog, but it was really mine, Maggie's, Bus, and Pawpaw's dog. It was a family dog. But Bubba's the dog I hunted. I mean, Maggie loved Bubba. She loved Grady too, but I mean, she had us for Bubba. But anyway, when the dogs first were let out, the first thing they would do is they would run. If you look at the overhead picture that you've seen, there were planted pines right behind the kennels. So you got the kennels and the chicken coop sort of form an L shape. And in that L was some planted pines. First thing the dogs would do is go out in that kennel, and Bubba and Grady, I was from Bubba, but Grady would do it too. But Bubba had to mark every tree. I mean, he would go and he'd do a little number. Dogs do, and it's marking his territory. And so that was the first thing those dogs did when they came out. When I got there, dogs were in that area. So that's why I believe that it hadn't been long before they'd been let out. Grady was chasing guineas, which was a normal thing to do.
What are guineas?
Guinea fowl is like it's like a chicken. It's a domestic bird that we had them. They make a lot of racket. It's like I know this sounds silly, but it's like a guard bird. Because anytime, they just make a lot of racket anytime anything unusual is going on. If anything disturbs them, it could be a person, it could be somebody driving up, whatever, they're going to make a lot of racket. So, racing the guineas, Paul's fooling with Rogan's dog Cash. Maggie's just kind of standing there watching the dogs, which is normal, and they were in that place. As the dogs are out longer, they branch out more. But at that point in time, they were right there. So that told me they hadn't been out a long time. Bubba catches a chicken. I'm talking to Maggie for just a short time before Bubba catches. I take the chicken, I put it. When dogs didn't chase the chickens to kill them, and they didn't normally kill them. They did kill them sometimes, but it was about the chase with those dogs, and they were proud when they caught. By the way, Bubba would prance to you when he brought chicken to you. He was proud that he had caught it, but he wasn't trying to kill it, and so most of him wasn't dead, and that chicken wasn't dead, but a lot of times they would be stunned and they would be just real lethargic. So you had to put it up somewhere where, the chicken could be by itself for a minute, and it would eventually, usually, come back to normal and go on about its, whatever a chicken does.
Did you get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I did. I took the chicken and I put it on top of that.
Now we've seen this video of Paul with Cash, Rogan's dog. Did you know that was going on? What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I knew Paul was fooling with. When I pulled up on the golf cart, Maggie was standing back, sort of where the driveway would be. It comes out at the feed room. Storage rooms, what we call it, it's been called. But it sort of ran out. Maggie was a little bit further up where she could see back in that angle where the dogs were. Paul was fooling with Rogan's dog back towards the kennel. If I remember when I first got there, Paul was more in the driveway, but then I knew Paul was in the kennel fooling with Cash, yes. But did I know what he was doing? I didn't know exactly what he was doing, no.
Did you?
I knew he was fooling with his tail.
Was Cash in the kennel when you pulled up? You think?
Not when I first got there.
Okay. Did Bubba or Grady have any collars on?
Yes.
Both dogs? One dog? Do you remember?
I don't know about Grady, but I know Bubba had on his tracking collar. Paul, for his hunting dogs, Paul had a series of tracking collars, and I think there were 5. It might have been 6, but it's a tracking collar that had a device that would tell you where that collar was, so that Bubba was bad about, he would stay close for a minute, but then he would take off. And he especially do Maggie. He would take off and run. And so he had on a tracking collar that if he did that, you could know, okay, he's, a half a mile down here. It's follow him, but so far, but it would follow a good long distance. So you could go get the dog if he ran off, which Bubba would do, especially when it was just Mags and Bubba. And so Paul probably would have been the one to put that on Bubba.
So you've got us where you've gotten the chicken out of Bubba's mouth and put it up on a doghouse or something?
I believe what I put it on, and I don't remember this, but I've seen pictures and all this, and I saw the chicken sitting on top of the what looks to me like a portable dog crate. Wherever it was sitting on there is where I would have put it up there. You know, if any reason to believe anybody else moved that chicken, and it ultimately, that chicken did die.
And what did you do after you got the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I got out of there. I left. I went back to the house.
All right. Well, before we do that, we've seen the dog kennel video with Cash and Mr. Davis. We slowed it down for him. The water hose in that video on the ground, do you remember seeing that?
Yes, I do.
Was the water hose out?
Obviously, in the video, but I don't specifically remember that, but I can look in that video and see it.
Right.
But that's not something.
So, but you've seen it in the video here.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. And then the two dogs were out.
Absolutely, and Grady.
Okay. And then you head back. How did you get back to the house?
The same route. I mean, the same route I'd come on. I came down the driveway, made a left on. You saw my route in the car. I drove that same route.
My question obviously wasn't clear enough. What were you in a vehicle? You walked? What mode of transportation did you use to get back to the house?
Same way I came. I went back in the golf cart, and it was the golf cart. If you remember that Mark Ball testified that he saw where we normally would park it. You pull along the front entrance, and either you'd come in from the left and you'd go just past it and be on the right, or you'd come in from the right and you'd be just past it on the left. That's where I got in it, and that's where I put it back.
Did you do anything else before leaving after you took the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
No.
We've heard about Bubba being stubborn. Take you to get chicken out of Bubba's mouth.
Well, Bubba could be stubborn, but Bubba would listen to me. And another thing, when Bubba had on that collar, one of the other features of that collar was
Or was it Grady?
Bubba had on the collar.
Bubba had the collar.
I know Bubba had a collar on, and I'm not sure about Grady.
Okay, go ahead.
If
I'm
I
sorry.
misspoke on that, there's no question about it. Bubba had on a collar. I assume Grady did too, but I didn't. I didn't. Even though I saw Grady, I didn't notice for a fact that Grady had on a collar.
Okay.
But he probably did.
So
Makes sense to me that he did.
how long did it take to get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
It didn't take long. Number one, Bubba's coming back there to show me, hey, I caught this chicken. So he's not running from me. He's proud of that fact that he caught this chicken. So, I mean, he comes right up. Bubba was really strong, but you take your thumb when the dog's clenched and his mouth's a little bit open. All you do is you take your thumb and you push his gum in really tight against those sharp teeth, and his mouth opens right up. Out and put it on. I believe the portable dog kennel,
And then left.
and then I left.
Then leave. Okay. And did you go back to the house?
I went straight back to the house, to the air conditioner.
And when did you get back to the house?
I lay down on the couch.
And then what? Well, was TV on when you went back?
Yeah, the TV never got cut off.
So you went back to the house, you laid down on the couch, and then what happened next?
I'm not positive. I dozed off for a minute or didn't doze off for a minute, but I got up off of the couch and I made up my mind I was going to visit my mom.
Had you spoken to Barbara Mixon earlier in the day?
I did. I
And,
talked to Barbara most days. If I didn't see her, I talked to her.
and what was your understanding of your mother's condition late on the afternoon of the 7th?
She was agitated, which she got agitated when my dad, we were putting my dad in the hospital. I mean, he had a lot, over the 18 months, 2 years. I mean, my dad was in the hospital. He was in the hospital a lot. And my mom, I believe my mom knew when my dad wasn't there because, she would get agitated. That's just the only term you can think of. She'd get agitated. She'd cry a lot. She'd be fussy when she normally wouldn't be fussy. I know Alzheimer's patients are unpredictable, but I'm convinced because it happened frequently. And Barbara Ann told me, your mom's agitated. You need to check on her. I gave her medicine. She's resting. So it wasn't anything urgent. But she's resting. So what Barbara would do, and Barbara could handle her better than, my mama. We all love Barbara. My mama loved Barbara. Barbara could get my mom to do things that nobody else, when she'd fuss for anybody else, including me or my brothers or my sisters, Barbara could get her, in order. And but Barbara had given her medicine and to settle her down and calm her down, and that would sometimes make her go to sleep for a little while. But then she'd be agitated when she woke up.
So did you go check on your mom?
I did.
Where did you park when you got there?
You saw the pictures. There's 2 exits off of that deck. One of them to the right, one of them straight out that back door. I would have parked to the left. If you're coming down these steps, if these are the steps, it would be to the left and back over there.
All right.
Which is where I always parked, or where we always parked, anytime you were going in that entrance.
All right, I'm going to stop there and ask Doug, if you don't mind pulling up State's Exhibit 524, which is the Murdaugh, and slide 38, which is in evidence. Can you see this the slide with those dots?
Yes, sir.
Alec?
I can.
And the red dots here at the that seem to be joined. Where is that in relation to your parents' house?
Where the arrow is?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's back in the area where I'm talking about. All right, so if you look in this picture, all right, you see the you see the open area with the green grass? That's the front door. Okay, yeah, right where that circle is. That's the front door. Closely at the house, you can see a big dormer right in the middle of the roof. That's right over the front door. The white thing to the left of the house, that's like a parking pad where the driveway ends. And there's a parking pad. So you go if you follow the driveway all the way to the house, you're going to run straight into a carport. All right, by the carport door. Just to the left before you get is this area that you can see here. That's part driveway, mainly parking pad.
All right, I'm going to, Doug, if you'll pull up Defendant's Exhibit 130, which is in evidence, please, sir.
Yeah.
And from this photo, can you point out roughly where you park?
All right, this is the entrance to the right that I'm talking about. There's an entrance right in front of that door that you see there. So if you came down those steps, walk to your left, would be down there would be where I parked.
Oh, would you have parked on the grass?
You get on the edge of the grass back there. There's some grass there for sure, but it's not the area up here by the house where it's sodded and
Sure.
this grass that you can see in this picture. So it may be on the edge of the grass, yes.
In relation to the satellite dish, in this photo, are you to the right of that?
Yeah, you'd be to the right of that satellite dish.
Okay.
Yes.
And
I believe
was-
that satellite dish is right on the edge of the, there's a hedge, and like you see I don't know what you call it, a border, like a border where the grass ends and the flower bed or whatever it is starts.
right.
I think, you can't see it, but I think that satellite's probably close to that border.
All right. Well, let's
So it'd be to the
Let's pull
right of
another-
that in this picture.
Doug, will you pull up a Defendant's Exhibit 134? See if this is a. So
Yeah.
is the door that you're talking about?
That's it.
The stairs that are those the ones where you would enter?
Right. These are the steps that I used that night that we always used. And one of the being is my dad, this door goes into what we call the breakfast room. The breakfast room leads right into the kitchen. And so straight through this door, all of the breakfast room is kind of to the left. That door goes straight through another doorway. There's no door there, but it's like just an opening. It goes into the kitchen. Immediately to your right of that entrance into the kitchen is the entrance into where my mom and dad's rooms were. So if you went through that door, you were in a little area that had my mom's closet, my dad's closet. A little bit further, you go into my mom's bedroom. Went to the right, you would go. My dad and my mom didn't sleep in the same room at this point, but their bedrooms were, there was a door going from one to the other that was blocked, but it was there, and then there was a bathroom. So this is really the part of the house that at their age was getting used. So that's why in this entrance, because my mom and whoever was caring for her was always in her bedroom, which would be just on the other side of the room that has these windows that you see to the right. All right, those would be the windows for the room where my dad slept.
Right.
And then my mom's right on the other side. The kitchen's right there. This is the part of the house they were always in.
And are you the only one that would pull up in the back like that?
No.
Is it common for your brothers and your sister to do the same?
Oh, we all did it. I mean, we all parked in the same way. If you knew going to the front of the house, or if you knew there was a crowd there, or for whatever, you may park on the driveway, but if you knew under normal circumstances, my dad always stayed in the breakfast room where he had a recliner and a TV. That's where my dad always was. My dad you would never go catch him sitting in the up front or in a living room. He just wasn't up there. He was in this room watching TV, or either he was on this back deck. And my mom was either in her room, which was just off of that, or she might be in the kitchen or the breakfast room.
And when you got to the house, who was there? It was on the night of June 7th.
My mom was there, and Shelley Smith was there.
And what did you do when you got there?
The first thing I did was I knocked on the door. The door was locked. I knocked on the door. Shelley didn't hear me.
And then what did you do next?
I called.
Called what?
I called my mom's house to let Shelley know I was there. Please come let me in.
Okay. And is that the house phone that's been referred to? Okay. And did she let you in?
Sure.
And then what happened next?
I went in and I visited with my mom. I mean, you want me to go into detail on that?
Well, just briefly. Yeah. What'd you do?
I went in the house In my mom's bedroom, my mom had a bed that was where she slept in normal times. It was like a bed with, the poles coming out of the corner, a poster bed that coming out of the corners. And she had a bed like that where she slept, but she didn't sleep there anymore. In the room, there was a hospital bed. So when you walked in the room, her bed was to the right. Against the wall to the left was a hospital bed, like a single bed, but a hospital bed, and a TV. And then there was a recliner where whoever was helping her would usually sit. So I went in, sat down on my mom's hospital bed, and I just talked to her for a minute. Mom was awake, and I held her hand, and
What kind of condition was she in?
her condition was not good at any time, but given her condition, she seemed to be doing pretty well. She wasn't agitated like I thought she would be, or like I was worried she would be, or like Barbara had at that point. So she wasn't agitated, and I just talked to her. Anytime we talked to my mom, we always tried to be positive and upbeat, and I just talked to her. I just talked to her, made sure she's okay.
Did you stay seated on the side of her hospital-style bed, or did you move around?
I stayed there for a few minutes. I stayed there and I talked to her in just a few seconds,
Right.
and then, but I didn't stay there. She did look tired. So I got up and I went and I think I sat on my mom's bed for a minute to start with, and then I laid down on my mom's bed, which is, that's what I normally did. I went in there. There wasn't like a lot of chairs to sit in, and I just laid back on the bed.
Now, when you
Talked to Shelley, and we watched TV.
Now, when you're talking about your mom's bed, are you referring to her regular bed?
That's right. Not her hospital bed, not the bed she was in, but her bed, the one I was talking about with like posts.
Right. Let me skip something. Was Maggie planning to go over to your mother's with you that night?
No, she wasn't planning to go with me that night.
Okay.
No, in fact, Maggie didn't really like to visit. She loved to visit my dad, and she loved to spend time with my dad. And she spent a lot of time with my mom when my mom was healthy. But, by this point, my mom, she was a shell of her old self. And
Okay.
it was kind of sad to go and visit her anytime. She wasn't healthy, and Maggie didn't like to go and just visit my mom.
When you left Moselle to head to Almeda the evening after going back to the house at Moselle, what
Say that again, Jim?
did you use of the Moselle property when you're going to Almeda on the evening of June 7th?
I went out the main gates, which would be straight ahead. You've heard of the two gates. There's the shop entrance. There's actually several entrances, but the main ones we used, there was an entrance by the Dove Field, there was an entrance further down by Sawtooth Oaks, but the main ones we used were the shop entrance and what we call the main entrance, where the brick gates were.
Did you go? Why didn't you go by the kennels on your way out?
There wasn't a reason to go by at that point, and I was going to Almeda, which the main gate would be the gates that were closer.
Did you notify Maggie in some form, leaving to go to see your mom?
I tried to call her.
And did she answer?
No.
And what'd you do after that?
I think I tried to call her again.
And did she answer?
No, she didn't answer. I texted her after that.
Well, the fact that she didn't answer on 2 times, did that concern you?
At that time,
Right.
it didn't concern me at all. Number one, she was with Paw Paw. So, no. I mean, number two, I mean, it's not unusual to not be able to get somebody all the time, and they're at the house or they're it's on the property. I mean, you've heard all the testimony about how spotty cell service was. So, no, at the time, it didn't strike me as anything unusual.
Okay. Now, moving to Almeda, you spent time with your mother, and then you left to head back to Moselle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you drive straight back to Moselle?
I did.
Now, Alec, there's some information from telemetry data off your Suburban and perhaps some of this OnStar GPS indicates that at some point in time in your mother's driveway, you stopped for about a minute. Do you recall seeing that data?
I did.
What were you doing when you stopped? Do
I
you
was
recall?
getting my phone. That my phone had gotten there's a hole in the middle of my car, and my phone had gotten down in the console between the console and the seat where you couldn't get to it.
Okay. Were you, during that minute or however long it was, were you disposing of murder weapons?
No.
Were you disposing of bloody clothes?
No.
And your ride back to Moselle, was it, were you driving faster than normal?
I was driving however I drive, normal way that I drive.
When you got back to the Moselle property, how did you enter the property? What entrance did you use?
Came right back through the main gate,
And
went straight to the house.
when you got to the house, what'd you do?
I went inside.
Were lights on when you pulled up? Or?
Lights were on in the house for sure. I can't remember if floodlights on or not. I don't believe there were any floodlights on, but there were definitely lights. All the lights in the house were on, yes.
And when you, how long did you stay inside the house, roughly?
Now that I've seen the benefit of these records, I was in there several minutes.
Obviously, I mean, were you surprised that Paul and Maggie had not made it back to the house?
You know, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but I mean, I thought they would have been back by then.
Right.
You know, but I mean, did it cause me to go into any? It wasn't like I was shocked. But I mean, I thought they would be there. I distinctly remember, you know, I went and looked. Sometimes I was very hot-natured. Number one, I was hot, I was heavy, and I was taking. So I was always hot. Maggie was always cold. Sometimes she would watch. We had a TV in the hunting room. You see on the wall there. Sometimes Maggie would be in there watching TV, where she could have the thermostat different than we always kept it cold in the main part of the house. So I know I went in there and looked in there for her. It's not unusual for Maggie to be taking a bath and be not able to hear me. So I went back there and I know I did those two things and looked in those two places. And they weren't there. And so, you know, I'd been at the kennels and I assumed they were still up there.
So what'd you do?
I went to the kennels. I may have tried to call them. In fact, I probably did try to call them. I would think I called them. But as I sit here right now, I'm not positive, but I would think I did. Would think I tried to call them to see.
And now, did you drive to the kennels in your Suburban?
I did.
And what'd you see?
Saw what y'all have seen pictures of. So bad. Can I have some water? I went to
Did you see them on the ground when you're pulling up in your Suburban?
I did.
And what'd you do when you came to a stop, Alec?
I think I jumped out of my car. I'm not exactly sure what I did, but no, I got out of my car. I know I ran back to my car, called 911. I called 911. I was on the phone with 911, and I was trying to tend to Paw. I was trying to tend to Maggie. And I just went back and forth between them.
Were you going to Paul and Maggie while you were on the phone with the operators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And in a little bit, I'm going to play the 911 tape, but I just want to ask you, and you've told law enforcement it's been played here in the court. What did you do when you went up to Paul at some point in time?
And Paul. Paul was he was so bad. At one point, I know I tried to check him for a pulse. I know I tried to turn him over.
When you say you tried to turn him over, why were you trying to turn him over?
I don't know. I don't know why I tried to turn him over. Me and my boys laying face down. And he's done the way he's done. His head was the way his head was. You could see his brain laying on the sidewalk. I didn't know what to do. I tried to turn him over. So I grabbed him by the belt loop and tried to turn him over. And when I did, his phone popped out. His phone popped out. And she picked it up and I put it right back there.
Do you have any idea how it popped out?
I know it came out of his pocket when I pulled on his belt loop. When I pulled him to turn him over. and it just popped out, and I mean, it popped right beside him. It sat right beside him.
Were you able to turn Paul at all?
I mean, I didn't. I don't know if I was able to. I didn't turn him over. No.
What side of the on what side of Paul were you when you were doing this?
I was on the side that was away from. I was on the side that was where my car was.
Okay.
I mean,
What'd you do with the phone?
back on Pawpaw.
Do you know if you put it, you know which way it was pointing, upside down, upside anyway?
Couldn't tell you anything about it. I know his phone popped out. I picked it up and I put it back on him.
Did you see any messages on Paul's phone?
No.
Did you go?
Did.
Did you touch her?
I did.
Where did you touch Maggie?
I think I touched her down. It was around like. I don't know. If you ask me exactly, I think I touched her down around her waist, but I don't know. It was so bad. Excuse me. I mean, I know I went back and forth. I went back and forth between them. I know I did.
I'd like to play, Doug, the Colleton County portion of the 911 call that is in evidence as defendant's exhibit number 9. And Doug, this is the long version, the first clip. Stop it when I say stop it, please.
2022 hours, 7 minutes, 9 seconds.
I'm still here, okay?
County Communication.
Congressman, I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line, caller from 4147 Mobile Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and sir, give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay, how did they shoot?
Alan, when you say I've been up to it now and it's bad, what are you referring to?
I'm talking about what I saw was what y'all saw pictures of, and it was bad. It was terrible. And when I first got there, I know I got out of the car. And I know I got out of the car. I mean, I knew. Got out of the car, but right at first, I don't think I went all the way to them. I think I ran back and that's when I called 911. And so I called 911, and while I was doing that, then is when I went to Maggie and I went to Paul. And so that's what I think I'm talking about.
Okay. Doug, keep going, please.
Do it now. It's bad.
Okay, how did they shoot? Did they shoot themselves?
Oh, no. Hell no.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
Are they in a vehicle?
No, on the ground, out at my kennels.
Okay, and did you see anyone?
He shot in the head, and he shot really bad. He shot really bad.
Okay, where is he shot at?
Ma'am, I don't know, but there's blood everywhere. I can see his brain. Face down. I tried to turn her a little bit, but she's got a hole in her head.
Okay, is he breathing at all?
No.
Is he? Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No.
Is guns near them at all?
No. There's here.
What color is your house on the outside?
What you're asking, they didn't shoot themselves, ma'am.
What?
Alec, right in there, you say the word here. What, are you calling anybody or anything?
No, I'm talking to that dispatcher.
And what did you mean when you said here?
If you listen to that call, one of the first things she asked me, was, did they shoot themselves? And I knew there's no way. I mean, I knew they didn't shoot themselves. There wasn't a gun themselves. And she'd asked me that. And then she asked me another question, something about that. And you hear me say here, thing talking, I'm telling her here, and then I say something, and then you hear me say, if that's what you're asking. And I'm letting her know they didn't shoot themselves. I'm saying here, and then I give her an explanation, which you can't hear on that phone, but it's obvious to me what I'm doing. And I say, if that's what you're asking me. So, like David Owens asked me on August 11th, did I call a dog or was I talking to somebody? There was no dog that was out, and there was nobody there.
Well, let's talk about that briefly. Well, when you got there and you saw Maggie and Paul, where were the dogs?
The dogs were in the kennels. Dogs were in the kennels. They were wherever they were when law enforcement got there.
And you've seen pictures, and they called Dale Davis to the stand and talk about the hose rolled up. Did you roll the hose up?
No.
Did you do it there at the kennels when you got there, other than call 911 and attend to Maggie and Paul?
No, I do know that I was trying to find a gun. Other than those things, no, I didn't do it. I didn't do anything at the kennel. I didn't do anything with any hose. I didn't do anything with any dogs.
Was there anybody with you?
No.
All right, keep going.
It's white. You can't see it from the road.
Okay, is it a house home?
It's a house.
Okay, and what is your name?
My name is Alex Murdaugh.
Okay, did you hear anything, or did you come home and find out?
I've been gone. I just came back.
Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house?
No, ma'am. Please hurry.
We're getting somebody out there to you.
There. Oh, should have known.
We just heard you say, I should have known. What are you referring to?
I said, Paul, I should have known.
What were you?
I was referring to Paul got so many threats. Didn't take serious. Twice about I'm just telling him, Paul, I should have known. I don't specifically remember saying that, but I can clearly hear myself say that.
Okay. What kind of threats did you understand was receiving?
I mean, Paul got the most vile threats. I mean, the stuff that was on social media, I mean, it was, I mean, you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it. It was so over the top. Truthfully, we didn't think anything about it. I mean, it was just so crazy that, we just, I mean, people talking about what he was going to get and how they were going to do this and get him and stuff. You really, I mean, we disregarded it because it's so over the top.
Keep going, please, Doug.
Okay, what is her name?
Maggie and Paul.
Maggie is her name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When's the last time you talked to Maggie?
Hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours ago.
What? Okay, you said about 2 hours ago you talked to them?
Approximately, yes, ma'am, approximately.
You were asked the last time you saw them, and you said hour and a half to 2 hours ago, and then she followed up 2 hours ago. You just heard that?
I did hear that. And I said approximately to her question.
When was the last time you saw them, Maggie and Paul?
Right after I took the chicken from Bubba.
And the video we've seen is timestamp 8:44 p.m. Is that correct?
Right.
So was it shortly after 8:44?
It was.
And
Long after that, because you can hear when Bubba gets the chicken, and it wasn't long after I took the chicken from him that I left.
and then you called 911. There are records of that, but do you remember roughly 9:07 or right before 9:07?
And I've seen the records and seen the transcripts, yeah.
And then this is some minutes into the conversation with 911 operators, correct?
That's right. Like,
Knowing everything we know now, I mean, was it roughly an hour and a half the last time you saw him?
it was. That would, with the time of however long it took to get to this point, this is 10, however many, you can look, see what point this is and know what time it is, but it's between 10 and 10:15. And so I'd seen them around 8:45, a little bit after.
All right, please keep going.
Say what they were doing at all?
No, I talked to her in person.
You talked to her in person?
And please hurry.
But we're getting to my other two. Me asking you these questions, don't slow them down, okay? And you sure they're not leaving? Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot in the head, but what about your son?
Nobody. They're not. Neither one of them moving.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227. I'm going back to my house just to get a gun just in case. I'm about
Did you go back to the house and get a gun?
I did.
And is this the gun that you got? And how did you load this gun? What did you load it with, if anything?
That was gun, best I can remember. I believe I got that gun off the pool table where you heard there was some other gun. I think that gun was laying with that pool table. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was on that pool table. That would have been the first place I came. I know I was grabbing the first gun I could get. I grabbed a handful of shells out of the that I could get my hands on. I know the gun had a shell in it that I loaded, and I know I had a few shells. So,
Okay. Have you seen in this case where there was a 16 gauge shell put in the gun?
I've seen in the records and I've seen and heard in the testimony that I put a 16 gauge shell in the gun.
Is that a 16 gauge shotgun?
It's not a 16 gauge shotgun. It's a
Why'd you
12
put
gauge.
a 16 gauge shell in it?
I obviously didn't realize what I was doing. I mean, I know you can't put a 16 gauge shell in a 12 gauge and not. I mean, I've been hunting my whole life. I know you can't do that. That's a mistake I would have made. That's not a mistake I'd have made under any circumstances other than tonight.
Why did you go back to the house to get a gun?
I just didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, saw it. I mean, it's just. I didn't know if somebody was still out there. I don't. I guess I didn't know.
Please keep going.
And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Go back to where he said he's going to my house to get a gun. Just a few seconds back, 10 seconds maybe.
I know you're upset, Mr. Murdaugh, but I don't want you to get a gun and have a gun out whenever my officers get there, okay?
Back up some more. Back up some more, please.
My house, just to get a gun, just in case.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227. I'm going back to my house just to get a gun, just in case. I'm about 100 yards from...
Alec, you said you're about 100 yards from the house.
That's what I said.
Is it much further than that?
I mean, as you've heard in the testimony, it's 1,100 and something feet, but
Okay.
I said I was 100 yards.
You were wrong about your estimate?
I'm sure I was wrong.
Okay. Keep going.
And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I know you're upset, Mr. Murdaugh, but I don't want you to get a gun and have a gun out whenever my officers get there, okay?
Oh, well, not that. He's been being threatened by... My son had a boat wreck. He's been being threatened for months and months and months. He's been hit several times, and finally...
Do you know who was threatening your son?
It's too many people. Over the phone. One second.
And you don't know the name of who was threatening him at all?
My son knows. And my son knows.
Your son knows who was threatening him?
I have another son now.
Okay.
All right, I'm going back down there.
All right, roll to the next tape of the same call.
2021, 22 hours, 13 minutes, 58 seconds.
Are they closed, ma'am?
Yeah, they've been around with you ever since you got on the phone with me. I have multiple people coming out there to you. Okay, can you do me a favor, Mr. Murdaugh? Can you turn on the flashers on your car so that way they can see where the kennels are? Do you have your flashes on for me, Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want you to touch them at all, okay? I don't want you to touch them just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
I already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
Not, that clip starts at 22:13, 10:13, 58, and you're asked, you're told don't touch them. Had you touched them by then?
Yes,
And that way you told the 911 operator.
it is.
And I mean, can you say exactly during the 6-7 minutes when you actually touched them?
I know I touched Maggie. I touched Maggie several times, but I mean, I didn't. I don't think I touched Pawpaw.
Did you touch or both of them before you got in the car and drove back to the house?
Yes. Yeah.
One or both? Do you know?
Both.
All right, keep going, please.
Okay. But I just don't want you to move anything just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
Oh.
Okay. And did your son, I know you said that he had been threatened, did your son make reports of this at all?
Yes, ma'am.
He did.
Al, you informed the 911 operator that Paul had made reports of these threats. What are you referring to?
I mean, I just know that it had been reported. I don't know that. I mean, I don't believe there was any like formal police reports or that type of thing. But I mean, it had been reported, and I mean, it was well known.
Okay. So, were you saying he had filed some official report when you said yes?
No, I never thought. I've never thought there was a police report or some formal report like that. No.
Do you know whether or not he made some type of report on campus?
Oh, I know he did.
What do you know?
I mean, I know that there was a time when he went to he was asked to come meet with, God, I can't even remember the gentleman's name now, but I appreciated it so much that I never thought I'd forget it. But
Is it part of student counseling service?
yeah, he was the dean of students. But anyway, he reached out to Paw and wanted him. And I mean, at first we were concerned, you know, why they want to talk to him? And I mean, even I believe I have come talk to you about that because we were concerned. Well, what are they going to talk to him about? But when Paul and Jim got there, it turns out that it was really just they were wanting to make sure, but you know, just make sure he was okay. And I know that, you know, they were aware of the threats or some level of threats, and so yeah, I mean, it had already been reported to them.
Keep going, Doug.
Now, what's your son's name? Paul?
Ma'am, I'm going to call, I need to call some of my family.
Okay.
On this.
Well, do me a favor for me. Whenever you see the officer or the medics, because they're all coming to you, can you put your gun in your vehicle for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. But we have them come in, turn on the flashes on your vehicle so they can see you, okay? You got the flashes on for me?
I do.
Okay. All right. Just, whenever you see them, put your gun up for me, okay?
Okay.
How old is your son?
22.
Okay. All right. We're there to you, okay?
And I will answer you call.
All right.
So, Alec, did you call family after you got off the call on the letter?
Yes,
Who'd you call?
I know I called my brother Randy. I know I called my brother John, and I know I tried to call Roro. Roro's not family, but I called Randy and John. And I called Randy and John.
And then you just mentioned Rodo? You mean
Rogan. We call him Roro. I called him Roro.
why did you try to call Rogan?
I mean, Rogan's house was like, I don't know, as the crow fly, 1/2 miles, 3 miles. I mean, Rogan was like family.
Did you use the closest person?
Yeah, I just wanted somebody. I wanted somebody to be out there.
Had you seen Rogan's name on Paul's phone in any way that night?
No.
You called. Did Rogan answer?
No.
Did you try multiple times?
Looking at these records, I believe that I did, but I believe some of those are like the FaceTime calls that are to Rogan. I mean, I'm trying to call him, but I don't believe that was me, actually. I mean, I didn't FaceTime. I mean, I didn't FaceTime people. So I think that's either me trying to call him and hitting FaceTime, or that's hitting buttons or hitting the phone.
In the State's Exhibit 519, which is the condensed timeline done by Agent Rudofsky, there's an indication, Alec, that at 10:22:09 you opened a group text with Michael Gunn stating, "She brought the heat for Miami boys." Were you reading text messages from Michael Gunn right after you got off with the 911 operator?
I heard them that question. I can promise you I wasn't reading any text messages.
There's also Alec that says p.m. that you did a Google search or a Safari browser search for Whaley's at Edisto while your wife and son are laying dead on the ground. Did you do that?
No. Whaley's is a restaurant at Edisto that we ate at a lot of times. We get a lot of times, so I'm assuming it was in my search history, pulling up the restaurant, and I obviously was trying to call people or dialing, and I hit that. I wasn't doing any Google searches.
And is one of the persons that you dialed that night a wedding photographer?
It's a guy named Brian White. I saw that on the call log. Brian White's a guy who was in my, contacts, that is a videographer that I've used in cases. I haven't used him in 2 years. And he's a good guy, but we're not personal friends, so with him.
So were you, what does that indicate to you, that those actions on your phone? How do you account for that?
Obviously they're unintentional. I mean, I'm doing something with my phone trying to call people, but I'm not trying to call those people. I'm not doing a Google search for these restaurants, and I'm certainly not reading any text.
I want to ask you,
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have you go to the jury room for a break of about 10 minutes. Please do not discuss the case. You'll stay put, Mr. Murdaugh. A 10-minute recess. You may step down. We cannot discuss your testimony.
turns out there was a drop on the steering wheel of the Suburban. Do you know how that got there?
I mean, if it was fresh, I put it there. If it was not fresh, Maggie drove my car all the time. But I assume it got there from me touching Maggie and then touching the steering wheel that night.
And then I think maybe there's possibly blood on this gun, maybe not. I mean, do you know if you got transferred blood on anything else that night?
If Maggie's blood's on that gun, then I put it there. I mean, Maggie didn't really fool with guns other than to put them up.
There's did you submit to a GSR examination that night?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, and that Brian Varnado testified about.
Where your hands were swabbed?
That's right.
Clothes were collected by, I don't know if it's Agent Owen or someone else.
Correct.
And turns out GSR on your shirt and on your shorts. And did you handle this gun? This is
Yes.
this is item 22 that.
Yes, I basically had that gun with me until I put it up against my car. When the police officer, I think it was Mr. Green, got there, I put it against my car.
And I think Nolan had testified that this is, one of the shotguns Paul liked to use.
It is.
Was he meticulous about cleaning his guns?
Pawpaw?
Yeah.
No. Now, when he cleaned it, he was meticulous about it, but it was far and few between when he actually cleaned them.
Your shirt went through testing and analysis, and you were part of this case, provided results of that, were you not?
Yes, sir. I mean, I wasn't providing at the time. I've seen them
Right.
seen all these records.
You well, just let me ask you, did you get on your shirt high velocity blood spatter from being within a distance of a shooting Maggie or Paul?
There's no way that I had high velocity blood spatter on me.
Had you seen reports that said that at one point in time?
I have seen reports that said that.
Just to be clear, were you anywhere in the vicinity when Paul and Maggie were shot?
I was nowhere near Paul and Maggie when they got shot.
After SLED collected your clothing that night at the main residence at Moselle, you remember changing in? You remember what you changed into?
Do I remember?
Yeah.
I know I changed clothes, and I've learned since then what I had on, but I don't.
You don't remember? Okay.
I don't remember that at all. But I understand I had on athletic shorts and a T-shirt.
Sure. And other people have talked about this. I'm not going to repeat it, but where did you spend the night, or where did you go to after leaving Moselle when you left for the evening?
We went to Alameda. We went to my mom and dad's house, and we stayed there.
And who went with you?
Eve, that bus in Brooklyn, and I rode together. John Marvin might have been with us. I know John Marvin stayed at Alameda with us. I just don't know if he rode in the same car we rode in. But I know I rode with Buster in Brooklyn. I know that for a fact.
And the next morning, what'd you do? And we're talking about daylight hours on June the 8th. What did you do?
And we basically came back to Moselle.
Do you remember roughly what time you got to Moselle?
Remember? No, I don't remember what time. There's things I remember about that morning, but I don't remember exactly what time we left.
And Alec, we'll get to this in more detail, but during that period of time, is it hard to remember times, what time things started and stopped, and how long things took?
I mean, it's definitely hard to remember. Now, looking at these timelines and all these records, I mean, it sure helps, but to just do it off the top of my head is very difficult.
Okay, we'll get to more of that. When you went back to Moselle on the morning of June, did you do you know whether you took a shower there, or took a shower at Alameda, or took a shower at all?
Now, I know we took it out. I did not take a shower before I left Alameda. We basically got up and went to Moselle. Maggie's mom and dad.
They were there.
They were coming. Tell them, see them. We got up, and we got up from Alameda, and we left, and we went to Moselle.
And do you know? Do you even recall SLED coming in and searching the house for anything on the 8th?
I knew that. I mean, I knew they were doing it. Yeah. I knew they would. I knew they would.
Okay.
But I don't remember. I wasn't out in that gun room and see all that video and all that. But I knew SLED, was coming in there. I mean, we made the house available for them to come in there. So I mean, I can't tell you details, but yeah, I remember it.
Did you at one point just tell SLED they had carte blanche to search anywhere, anytime?
I told SLED they could do anything, anywhere, anytime that they wanted to. Anything to do with me, my property, my cars. Even though I didn't own the cars, I would get from on the cars. I would have the people. They had full, whatever they wanted, they were welcome to.
And did you have any discussions with David Owen or anybody at SLED about consenting to General Motors to get that off the car?
Every time that I talked to David Owens, I would ask him about getting OnStar data and GPS phones.
And why was it important to you to get OnStar data and GPS data from the phone?
To confirm where I was saying I went, what I did, GPS. You know, at that point in time, I knew that Maggie's phone had been taken, and I knew that my Suburban and my phone and Maggie's phone never crossed. And that was extremely important to me. And I asked him about it every single time we talked. Every single time.
And speaking of Maggie's phone, did you know her password to her phone?
Yes, I knew her password.
Did you know her password to her computer?
Yes.
Did she know your password?
Yes.
Okay. And when Maggie's phone was located on the side of the road, did you provide SLED the password to her phone?
Did. I think I actually provided it to John Marvin, who provided it to SLED, but I'm the one who gave it to him.
Right. And your knowledge that Maggie's have instant services on her phone, she used them frequently.
All the time. One of Maggie's things that she liked to do was there's that app called Find My Friends that you can see what other people are doing and what you're doing. Maggie loved me, Bus, Pawpaw, Brooklyn, Grandma, Papa T, Marion, the three girls, Lizzie, and there were a few others, but the people that were closest to her, she had them all on, and she loved to look at that phone and see where people are, and she'd love to surprise you. Like, let's say you're at Walmart, she looks and she'd love to text you, get me a TV from Walmart or something, like she follow you and see where you were. She used it all the time. And so, I just knew that there would be GPS data on Maggie's phone.
Alec, when you're being interviewed on the night of June 7th and again on June the 10th, what was your understanding as to why they were interviewing you? Why were you being interviewed?
On June the 7th and June the 10th?
Yes, sir.
What's the question again?
What is his understanding of when Ed was interviewing him on the night of June the 7th and again on June the 10th?
And the basis for the objection?
401 and 402, Your Honor.
What do you mean?
Relevance, Your Honor. His understanding is not what he said is important, Your Honor.
Response.
Well, I can. It goes to his. It goes to his state of mind. I mean, that's what it goes to.
Objection sustained.
Did why was it important to you to be able to get data from the Suburban, data from your phone, and data from Maggie's phone?
I knew at that point in time, since I was the person who found Pawpaw and Mags, that I was a suspect. I mean, they kept talking about this circle. I knew that. It was very important for me to find that, to get that.
And what was your belief as to that information? What would it have done for you?
There's no question in there that it would demonstrate that I couldn't have done this.
And when was the data from General Motors off that Suburban finally obtained?
It was either this past Saturday or the Saturday before that, according to what was said in this courtroom.
During this trial?
Absolutely.
And to your knowledge, was GPS data ever able to be located off Maggie's phone?
Not just was not able to be gotten. The testimony was in here that it couldn't be gotten. It only went back to June the 9th. Everything before that was erased on Maggie's phone.
Now, when starting June the 8th, when that Moselle, did a lot of people come to support you, be with you on June the 8th?
On June the 8th?
Yes,
like
sir.
the next day?
Right.
Yes, sir. A lot of people.
And you mentioned your Maggie's parents and family came as well?
Yes, sir.
From that moment, June 8th, when family to Moselle and you met with them, were you left alone by any of your family members the rest of that week?
No. I was attached to Buster. At the hip. But,
And what
no,
happened on?
I wasn't.
What happened on June the 10th? Besides being interviewed by SLED?
My dad died. My dad passed.
Where did you stay, and with whom did you stay on the night of June the 8th, the night of June the 9th, the night of June the 10th?
On the night of June, you asked me to start on the 8th?
Yes, sir.
All right, starting on the 8th, I stayed with Buster I stayed with Buster, and as long as Brooklyn was there, I stayed with Buster in Brooklyn. We stayed with, I'm pretty sure beginning on the 8th, I know the 7th we stayed at Alameda, and I believe on the 8th we started staying at John Marvin and Lizzie's.
And how far is Greenfield from Alameda?
As the crow flies, I mean, it's no distance. It's less than 5 minutes. It's probably few minutes away.
And who stayed there? Did John Marvin and his wife Liz stay there as well?
Yes, John and Lizzie. All right, John and Lizzie stayed there, and their kids, Bus and Brooklyn and I. I know Bubba and May stayed there. Well, Lizzie's mom and daddy stayed there. And my daddy's best friend and his wife, I believe they came before my daddy passed. I know they came after he passed and stayed there.
And that, how many nights do you recall staying there at Greenfield?
So I stayed at Greenfield. The 7th was a Monday. I stayed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Greenfield. I know that for a fact.
And the Maggie and Paul's funeral was Saturday, is that right?
Now, I heard that in this courtroom say it was Saturday, but
So the memorial services?
nah, their funeral was on Friday.
Oh, it was on Friday.
I know that fact too.
And then your father's funeral was on Sunday?
My father's funeral was on Sunday, and it was my father's funeral. I forget the term. But Sunday, I mean, that's when we, Paul and Mags, that's when we buried him. We didn't bury him when we had the service on Friday, because I don't think they were done. But that's when we buried them, along with Dad, on Sunday.
And Alec, what'd you do with the following week, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Starting when now?
So the dad's funeral.
All right, Monday. I went to Grandma and Papa T's, Somerville.
Monday.
In the afternoon. You mean what did I do when I got up that
Yeah,
morning?
well, where did you stay?
We stayed at Greenfield Sunday night. So we woke up at Greenfield on Monday.
And so, and Sunday night you were with the same family members, your brother and Brooklyn and Buster and Liz?
And Lizzie and Lizzie's mom and dad. And I believe Donnie and Paula were still there, but I can't remember when they left.
And then you went to Somerville with whom?
I believe I went to Somerville by myself, but I know Buster in the car by myself. I can't remember if Buster and I rode together, but I think we might have had cars. We probably did ride together that first day. I don't remember, but I know I went and Buster was in Somerville with me, with Grandma and Papa T.
And Somerville is where Maggie's parents live?
That's right. That's Maggie's mom and dad. Maggie's mom is Grandma, and Maggie's dad's Papa T.
And did you stay with them for a few days in Somerville?
I stayed in Somerville. Yeah, I stayed with them. We stayed in Somerville Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and then we went to Greenville.
Okay. And what was in Greenville?
My niece. That was she was having a baby, and Maggie had just been. She's just been so excited. So. She's just so proud of those girls. She was so excited about the baby. So the baby being born just became such a big deal to me.
So was the baby born?
Yeah.
Okay. And you went
Yeah,
up?
baby was born. Beautiful little baby girl. Beautiful little mama.
And then did you go up to the lake after that?
We did. Well, I mean, we stayed at this lake, Kiowee, that y'all heard about, is really close to Greenville. And so when I say we went to Greenville, we really went to Lake Kiowee. But we went up there because, you know, when she had the baby, I want to say the baby might have gotten born shortly after like Thursday, but I think it was Saturday before we could go and see them and see my niece and see the baby. So, you know, I mean, that's where we went, was to Lake Kiowee. But they live in Greenville.
On the morning of June 16th, I think that was that Wednesday. I think that's a Wednesday. Where'd you wake up?
Somerville.
Did you ever go to Alameda on that day?
On Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
I don't believe so.
Did you go to Alameda at 6:30 in the morning on the?
I know for a fact that I didn't go to Alameda at 6:30 in the morning. I was in Somerville. I didn't go to Alameda at any point early in the morning. I was in Somerville, and I'm not positive about this, but I know those. I know they did I know some of those records they have. It was sometime before I left Somerville.
Okay. Did you ever take during that week? Let's just start with that week following your dad's funeral. Did you ever take a tarp into the house at Alameda? A tarp, a blue tarp.
The week following my dad's funeral?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
There's been, I don't know where it is in any of these boxes, but this blue rain jacket. Have you ever seen that before?
Never seen it before, never touched it, and don't know anything about it.
You, did you ever remember taking a tarp at any point in time over to the house of Alameda?
No, I don't remember it. I don't remember taking a tarp over there, but, you know, I mean, Shelley's got something in her mind about that, and there may have been some point, but I certainly don't remember it, and it certainly was anytime around my dad's funeral or the weeks following.
I think we talked briefly about your recollection of times, and
Okay.
and I just want to play Doug from State's Exhibit 517, which is the August 11th interview, 5 minutes and 52 seconds. If you could pull that clip up, and I want you to listen to this. Now,
Okay. Tell me again what it is.
It's August 11th interview, starting
Okay.
at 5 minutes and 52 seconds.
All right.
Can you go to 5 minutes seconds?
Who was at your house when you left, and what time did you go to the office?
We have been.
Who was at your house when you left, and what time did you go to the office?
We had been to a ball game that weekend. I don't remember exactly what time. It would have been somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30, probably.
Okay.
10 o'clock maybe at the latest.
Okay.
Something like that.
Al, on this tape, were you being asked when you went to work on the 7th?
Yes.
And you said 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning?
And then I think said 10 o'clock at the latest.
Is that correct?
No, it wasn't.
Now I've seen all these records. What does it look like? What time you went to work on the 7th?
A little afternoon.
All right. If we'll go to the States Exhibit 243, which is the June 10 interview.
You know, Mr. Griffin, on that same date, though, if you play that thing, and I don't know if it's right then, but if you play that further, I also told him the best way to see exactly when I went in that door is to go and get in for my law firm. And I told them that we have how things are electronic now, where you don't have a key, you have a key card, and you have a key card in your wallet, and so when you use it, it creates like all this other stuff, a digital footprint. And I told David Owens that he could go get it from my office.
And was that a common response of yours when you were asked about specific time, that you would give them your best estimate, but you would point them to where they could find the most accurate data?
Yes, sir.
You did that more than once?
Yes, sir.
So if we've got the June 10th interview, which is States Exhibit 243, and Doug, I'd like to go to 9 minutes and 59 seconds. And here you're being asked, when did Paul arrive at Moselle?
Roughly what time in the afternoon?
I would think it'd be somewhere in the 5 o'clock range, a little bit. It was broad daylight when we were. It wasn't dusk, dark, or late.
Okay.
And we rode. We just rode around. We rode around.
So did you tell him on June 10th that Paul got there at 5 o'clock time period?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I obviously did.
And was that incorrect?
Yes, sir. It was.
Okay. And what time did you, looking at the records now, what time did it look like Paul actually got there?
And looking at the records, it's clear that he got there sometime around 7 o'clock.
Did at some point in time you have a conversation with Shelley Smith about, how long you were over at Alameda on the night of June the 7th? Do you remember?
I don't distinctly remember having a conversation with her about how long I was over there, but I know that I told Shelley Smith that SLED was going to come and talk to her, and that I'd appreciate it if she would talk to them, and that she just needed to tell them the truth.
And did you take extra care not to talk to people that you knew SLED would be talking to?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
After this boat wreck that you've heard so much talk about in this courtroom, or social media, newspaper, it went deeper than that, but there was so much talk how I, fixed witnesses and structured the investigation, just things that were totally false, that were absolutely baseless, but it was said repeatedly, and it was repeatedly how I'd done this and with this witness and influenced this police officer and all these things. So I wasn't taking any chances.
I want to ask you about, you can take that down, Doug. Thank you. Ask you about the August 11th interview with David Owen at the SLED office in, I think, here in Walterboro. Do you remember that?
August 11th, absolutely.
Had you requested that meeting?
I've been requesting, what I'd really been requesting is some information. I've been begging Owens to come meet with me and specifically I wanted more Papa T. There were so many questions that I couldn't answer. And I've been begging him to meet with me and to meet with Grandma and Papa T. I've been begging him for weeks and weeks.
And did, when you went into the meeting on August 11th, did you think that's what it was for, to give you an update?
Yes.
And at the conclusion of the meeting, they let you know that you're their prime suspect.
Yes, Your Honor. What was said.
I'll rephrase it. By the conclusion of the meeting, did they make it known to you that you were suspect?
Oh, there's no question about that. Absolutely. I mean, you hear it talk about how I'm in this circle and he can't get me out and this and that, but there's no doubt in my mind. There was no question in my mind what was going on.
And the in the meeting, did they show you the Snapchat video of you trying to stand up the fruit tree?
Yes.
And were you questioned about what clothing you were wearing?
And I can't remember this. I can't remember if he showed me the whole video or he showed me a picture of it. But I was definitely shown those clothes in that meeting on August the 11th.
And what clothes were you wearing?
The same ones you see in.
And do you remember what kind of pants?
It was khaki pants.
And what kind of shirt?
It's a button-down, short-sleeve button-down. I call it a dress shirt, but short-sleeve button-down dress.
Like shirt you got there, but just short.
Just
sleeve.
like this, but short-sleeve, and it was colored.
And it was, what color was it?
Blue. Blue with some blue stripes.
And were you questioned about when you changed out of those clothes?
I was.
And did you have a follow-up? Did you have a conversation after that meeting with SLED with Blanca about what you were wearing that day?
Absolutely.
And what was the purpose of the conversation with Blanca?
Well, they had made an issue about that in that meeting, and I asked Blanca about those clothes that I had on earlier that day.
Did you ask her specifically about the blue shirt?
I asked her specifically about all the clothes.
Okay.
What I asked Blanca about specifically was, did she remember getting clothes after she came back? When she came back to Moselle, did she remember getting my clothes? It's specifically what I asked her.
I see. And why were you asking her those questions?
Because on August the 11th, they had made an issue about me still wearing those clothes, not having changed clothes when I was in that chat video. So that's why I went to Blanca.
Did they ever ask you on August the 11th whether I mean, they ask you for those clothes. Can you produce the clothes? Do they ask you that?
No, they didn't.
Have they ever asked you for those clothes?
No. As far as my understanding goes, my clothes were never an issue in this case until y'all figured out, as my lawyers figured out, that there was no blood spatter on me.
Sir?
Is that objection, Your Honor?
Reasons for the objection.
401, 402, and beyond in speculation, Your Honor.
Mr. Griffin?
You know, it's a matter of public record. It's a matter of public record.
What is?
The issues with the shirt and the blood test
It's a matter of public record.
filed in this case, yes, sir.
The objection is overruled.
I'm well aware that my clothes never became an issue in the case until my lawyers proved that this blood spatter that I had on my shirt, my wife and my son, was a lie, and that there was no blood on my shirt. And once they filed the documents and they proved that that was a lie, all of a sudden the clothes I was wearing back on that day became an issue. And that's in the weeks leading trial.
Now, Alec, after the Maggie and Paul were murdered on June 7th and 8th, where did you stay and where did you keep clothes?
Right. Say that again, please.
Where were you staying overnight? Well, let me ask you this. Did you ever spend another night at Moselle after June 7th?
I never spent another night at Moselle.
Why not?
Could've. Didn't want to.
Okay. Where were you staying? Well, we talked about the week afterwards, but where were you staying when you got back from the lake, Kiowee and Greenville?
I stayed. All right, so when I got back from Greenville, so
Yes.
that would be the, all right, be, so the first week, up until my dad's funeral, then, all right, so that'd be the second week. All right, so after we, I know, I stayed with Grandma and Papa T as much as I could. You know, I stayed with, I stayed with my brother Randy a lot. I stayed with my brother John a lot. Bus and I stayed at Edisto a little bit. But at the beginning, I really stayed with either my brother Randy and his wife Christy, or I stayed with my brother John and his wife Lizzie. And basically at that time, Buster worked for Wild Wing at that time, and they had been so kind to him and they let him be off just for a ridiculous amount of time. They were so good to him. So he stayed with me. When he had to go back to work, he would stay at my brother John and Lizzie's because it was close. So I would stay with Randy and Christy in Hampton. When Buster was there, I would almost always go John and Lizzie's when Buster was there. I would go to John and Lizzie's sometimes when Buster wasn't there. But Johnny Parker, one of my partners, had a guest house his mother-in-law had lived in when she was sick. That's really, it's right at the foot of Randy's Drive. It's 100 yards, 70 yards from, and I was going to move into I was going to move into that house until we figured out where I could live. So I had clothes there. I had clothes at Randy's. I had clothes at John Marvin's. I had clothes at Jesse, which is, I think you heard Buster talk about Jesse's, like where we went to the river, and I had clothes there. I had clothes in Somerville, and I still had clothes at Moselle.
So your clothes. Yes, sir.
Last question.
No, this. So were your clothes spread out a lot of different places?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
We'll break for lunch and return in an hour and 15 minutes. Please do not discuss the case. Recess, let's see, it's 1:25, what's that? 2:40. Recess till 2:40.